Today's newspapers now. Alison Sargent is with us here on set. Alison, you found lots of anger, haven't you? French anger, particularly, really, over this security pact. Saw them lose this major submarine deal.
Yeah, France's foreign minister had really harsh words for allies over the weekend. Jean-Yves Le Drian talking about lies and duplicity. He recalled France's ambassadors from Australia and the US. But after the anger, what will France do? That is the question that L'Opinion is asking today. The paper writes that Paris doesn't really have many ways of striking back against this brutal reaffirmation of US leadership. Ultimately, L'Opinion predicts that everything will fall back into transatlantic order once France has digested the loss of this submarine deal, even if, as we see, the loss is not being digested very smoothly right now. According to La Croix, though, this isn't just about the submarines. The paper writes in its editorial that Macron is making clear his doubts about NATO, which he has said a few years ago was going brain dead. And he's also making known his doubts about the U.S. being a good strategic partner now that its focus has shifted onto China and the Asia-Pacific region. Lacroix adds that the U.S. has also often ignored Europe when it comes to their shared interests, most recently in Afghanistan. So according to Lacroix, all of this is really wrapped up in France's anger that we're seeing right now.
And you've been looking at a lot of the other papers, haven't you, as well? A lot of papers actually shrugging off that French reaction, even making fun of it, actually.
Yeah, particularly in Australia and the UK. The Australian calls France's submarine fury a farce. The paper's foreign editor writes that while France has every right to be disappointed that they are going to lose tens of billions of dollars, well, they have no right to accuse anyone of acting in bad faith. According to him, France's juvenile foot stamping only confirms what a mistake it was to get involved in French strategic matters in the first place. That's according to the Australian. British cartoonists, meanwhile, are also really poking fun at France's anger today. My favorite cartoon is this one by Brian Adcock for The Independent. We see the three AUKUS allies tasting a glass of Emmanuel Macron wine. You note there, Stuart, that it is made from sour grapes and it tastes bitter with a hint of retaliation.
French wine is never like that, honestly. Let's move on to some French politics now, a little bit more French politics. France's Green Party, they held their first round of their primary on Sunday.
Yeah, and there was no outright winner, so two candidates will be going into a runoff next week. According to Libération, they represent two different conceptions of political environmentalism. We have the pragmatic Yannick Jadot, who's the one on the right. He came in first. And then the more radical ecofeminist Sandrine Rousseau, who was just 3 percentage points behind him. So it's going to be a close race next week. Libération's headline is a play on words that's not actually really worth explaining, but the gist is that two candidates means debates and also potential destruction. The paper hopes that France's Green Party can overcome their fratricidal quarrels and give themselves a real chance at actually impacting the election next year.
You never know. France is not the only country holding an election next spring. This is the Philippines. They're going to be choosing a new president. A big name has just been thrown into the ring.
Yes, and it's a name that is comfortable in the literal ring. This is Manny Pacquiao, the former professional boxer, I should say. We see him on the front page of the Manila Times accepting his group's nomination. He's the one on the left. He vowed to fight corruption and warned wrongdoers in government that he would put them in prison if he gets into office. It was classic underdog rhetoric. That's according to the Philippine Daily Inquirer. This paper seems less impressed by Pacquiao, who they say had a phenomenal boxing career that somewhat faded into a lackluster political one. Still, they say the fight is on between his party and the party of incumbent Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte is going to be running as vice president, which opponents see as a ploy for him to try and stay in power.
Finally, from Alison, let's get some reaction to this year's Emmy Awards. Mostly swept up by two shows, in fact. The Crown, it's always The Crown, isn't it? And Ted Lasso as well.
I know, Ted, two shows that I do like. A very good night for Ted Lasso and The Crown. Many papers, though, Stuart, are pointing out that it was a very bad night for diversity. The Emmys So White hashtag is back in action. As we read in Variety, there was a record number of non-white nominees this year, about 44% in the acting category. Still, though, white actors ultimately ended up winning every single one of those acting categories. There's particular disappointment over the fact that Michael K. Williams was not given a posthumous Emmy Award for his role in Lovecraft Country. Instead, that went to Tobias Menzies, who plays Prince Philip on The Crown, yet another one of those awards for The Crown. Williams was nominated multiple times throughout his career, but he never won an Emmy, a lack of recognition that the Huffington Post says is tragically unfortunate, yet unsurprising. I do want to end on a positive note about the Emmys, so allow me to introduce you to the latest fashion trend in fingernails. These are stiletto nails, which are exactly what they sound like. A culture website, The Cut, describes them as claw-like nails, sometimes so sharp they may pop a hole in a pair of leggings or accidentally scratch your face. Here we see them on the actress Taraji P. Henson. She was just one of the stars who had them out at the Emmys. The Cut says that they were the accessory doing all of the talking on the red carpet, and I feel like when you see those nails talking, you do not want to talk back.
No, it looks extremely painful, and Alison has promised she's going to put some on tomorrow and wear them, and
It might be a work hazard, but
manage to type
try.
and manage to fiddle with her papers and everything. Yeah, perhaps not. Not very practical. Alison, thanks a lot. Alison Sargent with the papers for you on France 24.